Foundation 45 is a 501c3 nonprofit that funds counseling services for mental health, addiction, and suicide survivors. In addition to providing services, it works to break the stigma surrounding these topics. Foundation 45 recognizes that musicians, artists, and creative types are often at a higher risk for issues with mental health and addiction. The organization's goal is to serve the Dallas-Fort Worth creative community by providing free, top-tier mental health and recovery services. You can learn more about Foundation 45 at foundation45.org. Foundation 45. Live fast, die old. I'm Andrew Sherman. I'm a Texas transplant who has always been in pursuit of art as a career. I've played in bands, pursued an acting career in Hollywood, but I found it behind the lens of a camera here in Dallas, Texas. I was born in New York, I've lived in Chicago, Los Angeles, Austin, but I love Dallas. There's a magical artistic scene in Dallas that mostly goes unnoticed to the outside world. This podcast is focused on what makes it so special and the people who make it thrive artistically. If you don't live here, and even if you do, you might not have heard of them. This is the Dallas Famous Podcast.
So who you gonna be? Who you gonna be when you're all grown up? Who you gonna be? Who you gonna be when you're all for us? Yeah.
This week on the Dallas Famous Podcast, it's trumpet player Thaddeus Ford. Thaddeus is originally from New Orleans and is a sixth-generation jazz musician. Well, he started out as a jazz player, but he has expanded and evolved way past that limited description. After surviving a heart attack at 35, Ford's life and career was given a fresh start and a chance to truly be authentic as a musician. Ford has played with Kirk Franklin and the Polyphonic Spree and is a teaching artist with the Dallas Symphony Orchestra's Young Musicians program since its inception. He's got a lot more than that going on, so take a listen to this chat with Thaddeus Ford. Okay, we are here with Thaddeus Ford.
Yeah.
Jazz trumpet player?
Yes.
Is that the way you would describe yourself?
No.
How would you describe yourself?
Well, I used to describe myself as a jazz trumpet player, but I don't know, man. I'm multidisciplined right now. Yeah, I mean, jazz trumpet is the vehicle, but, you know, there's so much more to me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, definitely. But, because I thought about that before. It's like, well, if you're doing jazz, I mean, there is jazz composition, but you're putting out recordings and, you know, like you're in Polyphonic Spree, that's not jazz, really. I guess that's a lot of everything. But,
Sure.
But there's a lot. I guess. So I guess we'll go back to the beginning.
Sure.
So you're from New Orleans.
I am from New Orleans.
Sixth generation?
Sixth generation.
Yep.
Yeah.
So trumpet players all?
No, my dad was a trumpet player, but my grandfather was a saxophone player. I've got an uncle who's a saxophone player. But we're originally from the Dominican Republic. Came to New Orleans in I always get this wrong, the late 1800s. Straight to New Orleans. The first was a gentleman named Narcisse Gabriel. He was a bass player, so late 1800s. So jazz was being formed, was being created at that time. So I've had a member of my family in the city playing music ever since that time. So I'm the sixth generation of musicians, but all instruments.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, I mean, it's funny because I have a lot of people who are musicians, and I'm like, were you just destined to be a musician?
Yeah.
Was that always going to be what it was?
No.
Okay.
Man. I wanted to be an artist first. I wanted to be a cartoonist, believe it or not. I wanted to be the next Walt Disney. Yeah. And then my dad put a trumpet in my hand when I was 8, and the rest is history.
Well, like he put it in your hand, and then like that made the decision for you. He did?
No. It didn't. I mean, it was just fun, you know. And then I met Wynton Marsalis in 9th grade, and then it was like solidified, like, okay, that's what I want to do.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Like how did you meet him?
He came to my high school. I'm probably too close, but he came to my high school in New Orleans, and he did a clinic, and I just remember he was dressed really well. He was really, really articulate about the music and just about life. He could play the trumpet and the piano at the same time, and I just, even though I came from a musical family, I never really saw that level, you know, of what was possible. My family was doing major things, but for some reason that intrigued me the most. And my dad was actually in the audience that day. So after we watched Wynton, I went immediately to my dad and I was like, that's what I want to do. And he said, okay, well, call your grandfather up. And so I called my grandfather. I'm sorry, I didn't call my grandfather for 2 years to tell him that I wanted to be a musician. And so my parents were divorced, so, you know, distance between the family and what have you. But I didn't call him for 2 years, and then I finally called him, and I started taking lessons with him. This was 1994, met Wynton in 92. '94, I started taking lessons with my grandfather. In that summer, same summer, he passed away. And that began my career. I went to Performing Arts High School after that, then a couple of years of college. I'm fast forward, and then I got a really good gig, started traveling, and here we are.
Huh. And how did you end up in Dallas?
Man, I was dating a girl who graduated from college. She moved here because she got a really good job. And we tried to do the long distance thing for a while. Just wasn't happening. And I kind of was, I don't say this often, but I was kind of burned out of New Orleans. You know what I mean? I had played everywhere I wanted to play, and it's a wonderful city. But I feel like there was something more for me. So I followed her here, and I came for what was supposed to be a weekend. A weekend turned to 2 weeks, and I just never went back to New Orleans. And then I think about a year later, Katrina hit. And so like, well, there's nothing else for me to go back to. So Dallas became home by default.
Yeah.
I never planned on it. Dallas was never on my radar ever.
That's
I knew a couple of people who had a couple of gigs here, but it was like, whoa, you playing a gig in Dallas? Like, what is that? It's
right.
like Austin, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But so it was always weird to me, like, whoa, you got a gig in Dallas. I had no concept of what Dallas was.
Yeah. No, I lived in Austin for a couple of years, and it was the same thing. I think I came up for a Cowboys game, and that was
exactly.
That's what it was. Wasn't for anything. And I was like, why would you want to go to Dallas?
People still ask me that.
Yeah.
Why did you?
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm like, but now it's funny because I'm like, you just don't know.
You just don't know.
If you don't know. I mean, it's like there's literally too much to do here.
Right.
But when you got here, what year was that about?
2004, I think. Because
So-
I'm 19 years in right now, so I think the dates are getting foggy, but I think it's 2004.
Okay. And then when you got here, like, what did it look like gig-wise here? Like, what were you doing for that?
I was not. I mean, the first year, I wasn't even out there. I mean, the first half a year at least, I would just look in the Observer and just look under jazz. And I would just go hang out at clubs. There was a club in Addison called the Django's, organist named Red Young. He lives in Austin now. He used to be Cher and Sonny's musical director. But he had a club in Addison. I would just go, and I met Freddie Jones, the trumpet player. He was there all the time. Shelley Carroll was there. So I was just incognito, just checking it out. And then Shelley Carroll gave me my first gig with his big band at Django's in Addison. I mean, it's not there anymore, but yeah, I mean, I didn't play at all for probably 6 to 8 months when I moved here.
Were you just like checking out the scene, or you just like getting your
I
feet on the
had no
ground?
plan, man.
Yeah,
I just, Dallas was so big to me just coming from New Orleans because everything feels tightly knit and all of the communities are kind of like homogenized almost. And Dallas just felt like there were so many different scenes that it was just overwhelming for me. And I just kind of wanted to see what was here and not feel like I had to replicate who I was in New Orleans. I wanted to see who I could become in this scene. And so I was perfectly cool with just nobody knowing who I was and that I even played and just checking stuff out.
It sounds like a jazz mentality.
Right.
I'm like, it's like a rock guy. It's like, no, like where can we play? Like we just hit town, and you're like, I'm gonna take a while and figure. That's very smooth, and I like it. Was there like a more places, like a bunch of places, jazz places back then?
There was the Balcony Club. Well, I mean, that's still here now. There was a couple of places on Greenville. I don't even know if I'm saying it like a Dallasite. Greenville?
I'm not.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
There was a place I think it was called Gazelic on Greenville, and Django's in Addison.
Was there more then than now for jazz? Was it gone down, or because
I think it's gone down.
Okay, because I'm not aware of the scene as much.
I think it's gone down. But the funny thing is that I started gravitating towards the blues scene here before I was really entrenched in the jazz scene, or kind of simultaneously. But the blues scene here reminded me more of the jazz scene in New Orleans, just organic and just like, let's just play. Like there's a place on Harry Hines called The Hole in the Wall. I don't even know if it's still there or not, but I had a good friend. She's a blues singer here in town, Marcy Rotsky, Miss Marcy. She would like put me on her back and take me into all these blues jam sessions. And, coming from New Orleans where it's just blow and have a good time, it's a party, I gravitated towards that scene. Right. The jazz scene in Dallas at that time was really geared towards smooth jazz. There was a smooth jazz radio station when I first moved here that was local. And nothing against that, but it was just that wasn't where I was coming from.
Yeah.
And so I had more fun on the blues scene.
Right.
Hash Brown, the guitarist here, he kind of took me under his wing a little bit too. And yeah, there's a bunch of places.
That's cool. I went to school in Chicago, so I had a touch of blues there, but I didn't realize there was even a blues scene here other than the Stevie Ray Vaughan vibe. Like
it doesn't feel as prominent now, but when I first moved here, it was, to me, it seemed like really, really prominent. Mm-hmm. And I haven't really been on the scene, so I don't want to make these bold claims because then somebody listening will be like, we have a scene. What are you talking? You know,
first of all, if anybody's listening and they like comment, thank you. Second,
yes,
because it doesn't happen often. But second of all, you're just talking about your experience.
Sure.
That's all we're asking.
Sure.
I don't expect you like this is the authority on
right.
jazz. No. So you're doing all that now. At what point? I mean, obviously you're playing in open jams and you're playing with the different performers. I guess starting to ask you to play.
Yeah.
At what point were you starting to do stuff regular with anybody?
I got my gig. I had my first gig at the Balcony Club probably in 2005. So once people started hearing about me and I started playing, it was very quickly. And then the Balcony Club gave me my first gig under my own name here. And that had to be 05. As a matter of fact, I'm cleaning up right now because I'm moving and I saw a flyer from 05. And so I put a band together and just some young killing cats. Some of them are still here. Genka James was in my first band.
Oh, wow, okay.
Who else is still here? Jalen Washington's on drums. He's still in Dallas. A bunch of other people. But anyway, we did a regular night at the Balcony on every Monday. And so there's a tradition in New Orleans where you cook red beans and rice on Monday nights because that's supposed to be like your laundry day. So you put a pot of beans on the stove in the morning, you let it simmer all day so you don't have to worry about it. So I used to cook red beans and rice, put it in a crock pot, bring it down to the Balcony every Monday night. And so it was like Thaddeus Ford and the Continuum, that was the name of my band, plus free red beans and rice. And people used to come for the music and the free red beans and rice.
Yeah.
And that was probably my start here in Dallas in terms of my band, my sound, that whole thing.
Huh. Okay. And then that, I guess, started going well. Like you're like in your 30s at this point almost?
Yeah. Late 20s, early 30s.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. My daughter was born in 08 and I was 30 then. So, yeah.
I'm only asking because I'm leading up to when you turn 35.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So before that, so basically you're just having some like success, like just touring around in the scene here.
Yes. And then I got a gig in Shanghai, China.
Whoa.
So that was actually 07. And so I had a relationship with a entertainment lawyer in New Orleans, and I still had connections back at home when I first moved here. But anyway, she called me up and she said that some people in Shanghai were looking for a band to do an 11-week residency. And so I've been on it, and I left Dallas probably at the height of me, like people finding out about me and the gigs are going well. And so it was just really, really cool. And so I did this 11-week residency in Shanghai, House of Blues and Jazz in Shanghai. And then I came back and it's just been on since then. Because Dallas is a funny city, man. It's like, you know, when you're here doing your thing, it's like, okay. But as soon as you go somewhere else and do something it's like, oh, okay, now you're ours. And I'm telling you, man, like, just the love that I got while I was gone. This was the height or the beginning of social media, because MySpace, we were at the height of MySpace, and I was keeping everybody, you know, back at home informed about what I was doing in Shanghai, and people were following along. I got back, and it was just like, we love you. Oh my God, blah, blah, blah. So,
that's
so that was 07.
That's interesting, because a lot of people, you know, start here and leave. And,
right.
You know, that's like, maybe more people should look at it like, you know, we don't have as many people that like own it like that. It's really nice for the people that do come back and they do live here, you know. So then you come back and like, so you're playing what, bigger venues, or like, what does that mean?
Locally?
Yeah.
Bigger venues, more regularly, price went up. And there was just a buzz. And, I did a gig. There was this club downtown called Pearl at Commerce. Rick and Tracy Yost, they actually just moved to California. Rick just passed away, but they had a club. They opened up real nice, real swanky. And I did this birthday party for myself. I used to do that kind of thing all the time. And I turned it into a jam session. And the goal was to try to bring the blues musicians that I was a part of, the modern musicians, the funk, the gospel. And so I brought all of these different kinds of musicians together, and it turned into this big jam. And there's a guy named Mike Oren. He used to work for Dallas. You know Mike?
I've heard of him, yeah.
He used to work for Dallas Morning News, and he started his own, not publicity, but just like communications newspaper and so forth and so on. But anyway, he had a company called Pegasus News back then, and that was actually like supposed to be a rival to The Observer. Mm-hmm. So he basically put out this blast that Thaddeus Ford is in town doing this huge jam session, and if you are a musician, you need to come down. So literally and I've got pictures of it, literally just like people from all these different scenes were just coming together, and just, they had never seen anything. This is what people were telling me. They had never seen anything like that in Dallas before, but that was my norm in New Orleans. You know what I mean? So that's what I mean when I say that, just the love that I had a certain, I don't want to use the word power, but I had a certain influence that I could bring all these different older musicians, younger musicians, different genres together for this one night. And that was big for me.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I used to do the birthday shows too, but not as cool as that. That sounds amazing. Yeah, and so I don't know if I have the time frames.
I'm good.
Were you doing Kirk Franklin? Did that happen before?
No, this is way later. Kirk Franklin was 2016.
Okay, all right, we'll get to
him.
We'll get to him. So you, let's just get to it.
Sure.
A few days before your 30th birthday, you have a heart attack.
Yeah.
Now, that's something that ran in your family.
Yes.
Yeah, but talk about that a little bit.
So my dad died of a heart attack at 44. Wow. And this was 1999, so 1 year before I turned 21. And so we all just attributed to the fact that he was a smoker. Now, he did have an enlarged heart. He was in the Marine Corps for 15 years. He was in the Marine Corps band, trumpet player. He got discharged, honorable discharge, because of the enlarged heart, but he never stopped smoking. And we all thought he did, but he never did. And so we just attributed his heart attack to that. I never had any symptoms. I never had any issues, so I never got checked. I was a relatively healthy guy, pretty thin, the whole thing. Yeah, 35, exactly. And so 3 days before I turned 35, I was slated to do my debut as a composer here in Dallas, or just the world. Up until that point, I was just playing mostly other people's music, standards, what have you. So we had this performance scheduled for my birthday, October 10th, driving to a rehearsal October 7th. Hunter Hendrickson, you know Hunter?
Oh, yeah.
Hunter was in my band at the time. A bunch of people were on the show, and driving to Hunter's house for a rehearsal, and I left my then girlfriend's house and started having these symptoms. And I never had a panic attack before, but that was the first thing that came to mind. Pressure for the show, what have you. The symptoms wouldn't go away, couldn't catch my breath, hyperventilating. I'm driving and just profusely sweating. It felt like somebody dumped a bucket of sweat on my head. That's how drenched instantly I got. Pulled into a parking lot of a grocery store, started throwing up, the whole thing. And I came to enough to drive. It was like 2 blocks away from her house. Went back to her house, and I was just like, I don't know what's wrong, but I think I need some water. She was like, you need more than water. So I was pretty stubborn. She had to convince me to go to the emergency room. And I've told this story before, but we get to the emergency room, finally get on the ER table. Doctor's like, sir, you're having a heart attack. And they were like, did you have any symptoms before? Had some heartburn early in the day. He was like, why didn't you come in then? I said, I was busy. He said, if you were busy for 1 more hour, you wouldn't have made it.
Wow.
So got an emergency surgery, got a stent put into one of my arteries, which was 100% blocked. And here I am 10 years later, just celebrated 10 years of survival. And it's even more meaningful because my dad never made it to 45. So I made it, I survived it, and I made it to 45. So now I feel pretty invincible. And, none of us know the hour or the day, but I promise you, man, just getting to that plateau was just monumental for me.
Yeah, geez. I had 2 stents.
That's right. I forgot about that.
I had a 99% block.
Wow.
But
you get it.
Yeah. But luckily, it was weird. I thought I had a pain in my shoulder area, and I thought that's what it was.
Yep.
And I went in, and the doctor's like, that's your shoulder, and it's from shooting photos.
Yeah.
But he's like, let's take a look anyway.
Sure.
And then next thing I know, I had 99% blockage.
And you didn't have any history or anything before?
I mean, it's hereditary, but none of my, my dad has nobody's had a heart attack.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So, and I haven't eaten meat since like
I didn't know
1990, I feel like.
Wow.
Apparently that has nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
I could have probably exercised more.
Well,
I mean, that's apparently like something that helps. But,
sure.
but now I'm in this place where I'm like, well, if I exercise, I'm going to mess more stuff up. So
I get it.
There's a lot more mental stuff with that they tell you. I will say that.
Yes.
What else do we have in common? We're both getting married, apparently.
Right. Absolutely.
What do you have a date for?
I do. March 29th.
Okay.
It's coming up. I think we're less than 100 days now.
When are you going to put those photos out?
We used them for the invite. The save the date.
Save the date.
And now we were kind of wanting to do that first, but you're right. We need to go ahead and put them out there because they're gorgeous.
Okay.
And everybody who sees them are like, this is so y'all. And we picked the perfect photographer to do it. Oh, it was great.
It worked out. I was stoked with. I want to see them.
Absolutely.
In the world.
Sure.
All right. So then, so recovering from the heart attack.
Yep.
Like how long before you really felt comfortable to go back out and start playing again?
A year total. I kept going back to my cardiologist, and he kept saying, you should probably not be doing that right now, blowing the trumpet.
That was him.
Yeah, 100%. In hindsight, it's like you just mentioned, it started to become mental because the trumpet is an unforgiving instrument. And it's like if you're not doing it on a regular basis, it starts to psych you out. I tell my students all the time, the trumpet is not going to lie for you. If you've not been putting in the time, that the piano will lie for you. More so.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, because I played sax in band. I wasn't great, but
I'm learning everything about you.
Well, I mean, I guess this is two people interviewing. But listening to trumpet players like from young ages, it's like getting that tone and then holding that tone.
Yep.
There's a lot of suffering as a non-trumpet player in band class.
Absolutely. It's so unforgiving.
Yeah, like you can definitely get away with more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, it started to become that. He was telling me, slow down, wait. But I don't know if it was the whole year. It was probably more 6 to 8 months. Mm-hmm. The other months were me just being like, man, my whole world got flipped upside down because, the things that I used to rely on that I felt like this is me, this is how I'm presenting myself to the world was almost instantly taken from me. So now it's like, I don't want to just go back out there to status quo. So there were so many conversations in my head of like, okay, if I get to do this again, this is a fresh start. I can be who I want to be, always wanted to be. And, without the veneer, without the, I know this works, so I'm going to do that whole thing. So probably 4 to 6 months was the mental battle of how am I going to come back out there? Who am I going to be? Am I going to be my most authentic self, or am I going to give people what I know they like from me, which I was very good at.
That's interesting too, because you were about to do your first original music,
right?
And then that didn't even happen to the public. I mean, obviously you had stuff written already.
Yeah.
And then you just said something really interesting, am I going to be I don't know, how do I rephrase that? It's almost like who did you want to be that you weren't is I guess the question.
I wanted to be more of my authentic self. Starting at a young age in New Orleans, I learned really quickly what people like about what I do. And when you're young, impressionable, and then you start to get money and notoriety thrown at you because of this thing, it almost becomes a crutch. And it was almost like I could do this in my sleep. Mm-hmm. And it's not a better, worse, good, or bad thing for me. It was just, man, I could have almost died. And is that all that I was put here for? And so it was like, if I'm going to be granted more time, more breaths to breathe, I want to use those to the fullest extent, because it was very apparent to me that I went through the same thing that my dad did, but he didn't get another opportunity. So it's like, man, I don't want to take that for granted. And so I knew, leaving New Orleans, I knew I had more in me. But I got here and people started clapping because of what I've always done. So it's like that the move would be in vain. I could have stayed in New Orleans. So those 4 to 6 months after the heart attack, it was like, okay, I need to figure out, if I come back out here, who am I going to be? So that's what that was.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And so, okay, so then when you did play your next show, that was original stuff?
It was original stuff. The next show was the the show that we were supposed to do, the original music. So
cool.
There's a gentleman named Robert Swan. You know Robert? Mm-mm. Yeah, he's a great guy. I don't even know how to describe him, but he had this jazz series that he was doing called Tuesday Night Jazz. It was at St. Paul's Church downtown in the Arts District, which is historic for some reason I can't remember right now. But anyway, so he was very adamant about when you're ready, this is not going anywhere. And so that was my first show. And I had a few other shows booked around there. It was my comeback week is how I was promoting it. So I had a free man show. I think I had a balcony. And so this Tuesday Night Jazz series was the culmination of it all. Mm-hmm. So we did it. And I mean, man, it was cathartic. I mean, it was like, whew, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, we did it the very next year for my birthday.
Huh. And then that was kind of like from that point on, you kind of just doing originals and
mostly original, and just not to say I didn't do any standards or anything like that, mm-hmm. but it was just like, wow, like I can create my own voice. It was already there. So it was like I had the green light to just go ahead and be me.
I feel like especially in the kind of world that musically you were in, that's got to be tough because like some people never become composers, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's totally acceptable and fine. I mean, you become master of your instrument, like that's amazing, you know, but that transition, I always think it's interesting. I mean, you know, the only thing weirder is if you started singing.
Right.
Not that it's weird, but you know.
Right. No, it would have been weird.
But it's like, yeah. So then I guess you're writing your own music.
Yeah.
Are you're pushing out of jazz completely at times and out of blues completely? Like you're starting like your own sound then?
It's a gumbo. It's a gumbo.
Uh-huh.
It's like, you know, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, to the point where when I'm eating gumbo, I recognize, okay, this is a shrimp I'm eating, this is a sausage, but I'm not concentrating on those different elements in the bowl. It all becomes one homogenized thing, and that's kind of, you know, the goal for me in everything, but particularly music is I want you to be able to say, people tell me this, the highest compliment I get on gigs is when people come up to me and say, I didn't think I liked jazz, but I like this, and I like you. And I used to be offended by it at first because it was almost like a slight. Well, do you not think this is jazz? That's why you know, whatever the case may be. But what I'm recognizing is that what people are receiving from the music goes beyond categorization, and that's the goal. Should be the goal for all of us. My music made them feel a thing that they previously thought jazz couldn't or hadn't, and that's okay with me. Yeah. So so that's been the goal for the last 10 years.
Was it hard, like once you got through that initial weekend, for people to accept you as like, I'm not just going to be your standard guy?
Everybody was encouraging. All right. And people started coming into my life. That's when I started working really heavily with Hunter. And Hunter was really instrumental in helping me to understand the role of the guitar in my music, because I heard so much guitar and no electric. I mean, there's electric guitar in New Orleans, but it's a horn-driven, piano-driven, drum-driven kind of music. But Hunter really opened me up to what I was hearing. He was able to translate what I was hearing in the guitar. And so it's just been, people have come into my life that have been the answer that I needed to get to this sound. And it's still like that right now. And
so then, okay, so what point did you get on Kirk Franklin's radar?
2016. So I've been friends with R.C. Williams and Sean Martin practically since I got here. We're all the same age and so forth. And R.C. called me out of the blue. I mean, I hadn't talked to him in a while. I played his 10-year anniversary of the jam session that December. Can't remember. So I guess 2015 maybe. And so I hadn't seen him in probably a few years prior to that, but I played that jam session anniversary. Snarky was there, and the big thing. And so I was back on his radar, I guess. And so they needed a trumpet player to do one of Kirk's gigs, tours. And Sean recommended RC to me, recommended me to RC. He just called me up and was like, hey, man, you want to do this tour? It's like, yeah. And he was like, okay, Kirk's manager will give you a call, pretty soon. Hung up the phone. His manager called me less than like 5 minutes after that. We worked it out, negotiated it, and the rest was history. I mean, that was probably the biggest tour that I had been on, still to this date. I mean, just the level of production and just the venues and whatnot, and opened me up to a whole other world of musicality and professionalism. I would say that's probably the biggest thing that I learned, you know, because jazz can be kind of grassroots and organic a lot in terms of touring, but this was just, the level of professionalism was just unmatched.
Yeah.
And directly from Kirk and his whole team, you know, extremely humble, extremely just the work ethic.
Yeah. You know, after you're in the world for a while of this entertainment world, you're like, the only people that get to that level are people that do it that way.
Yeah.
Like,
It's not luck.
Yeah, there's no jackasses that are really, I mean, maybe none, but there's almost none, especially in music.
Right.
You know.
And you don't get to see that unless you're like in it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? You see the fruit of it and you say, wow, you know, they lucked up or whatever. But when you really see the cover pulled back, and I saw how he prepared every day for the concerts and whatnot. And I mean, he was professional, but also I saw the humility in him too, you know, in many occasions. And that was a treat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I just before you got here, I realized that you had a connection with Sean Martin.
Yeah.
Do you guys jam a lot together, or just friends? Or?
Not recently. I mean, we're just good friends. I mean, I say good friends, but we're close. Yeah. We don't hang out. I don't go to his son's birthday parties or anything that, you know, but we know each other, and, you know, he's mutual respect.
Positive influence.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then how did you find your way into the Polyphonic Spree?
Reed Robinson. You know Reed?
I know the name.
Reed is just the purveyor of all things art in the city. I mean, striking gentleman, 6'4", real slim. He used to be in a group in Dallas called the Shanghai Slingers, Singapore Slingers. Some group anyway, but they were pretty popular when I first moved here. Guitarist. Anyway, they were looking for a trumpet player. Same scenario. They were looking for a trumpet player. Reed recommended me to them, and the rest was history. I do need to say on record right now that I'm actually no longer in Polyphonic Spree.
Okay.
So that is a new transition that just happened a couple of months ago, mutually. But it was just, you know, they are on the cusp of doing some pretty major things. And, you know, I'm doing some things in my career that just kind of wasn't the commitment, time commitment, what have you. So it was a mutual part. Wish them well, and they wish me well. And I joke with Chris Penn, who's the manager, and, you know, I told him I'm just happy to be on the roster of former members now, which obviously includes St. Vincent and the likes, and several snarky members. So, you know, I did my tour of duty and really appreciated it, but I'm elated to be on the roster of alumni.
Oh, I'm glad that I caught you with them then.
Yeah.
Was that your last show at the Longhorn?
It was.
Okay, cool. Well, I got photos of your last show.
Yeah.
And you were way in the dark.
I know.
So I don't know how many of you I
that
got.
might have been a premonition. We didn't know, but yeah, and that was a great show too.
It was
Historic
an amazing
room.
show. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love everybody that works there.
Yeah, I've been seeing the pictures of people that you shoot there. Yeah, it's awesome.
It's been cool. Okay, so then also I saw that you had done some work with the Dallas Symphony, doing some teaching.
Yeah. So I am a teaching artist with the Dallas Symphony Orchestra. Been since 2019. They've got a wonderful program called Young Musicians. And essentially, in a nutshell, it's all donor funded. And we go into schools in South Dallas. We've got about 6 on our roster right now. And essentially, we give them free instruments and free music education. And I've been with the program since its inception. And just to see it grow and to see these kids who may have not had the opportunity to get this level of education and free instruments, man,
that's amazing.
It's amazing, and we're really churning out some really outstanding young musicians, hence the name. But even if they don't become professional musicians, you know, just to be able to impart life skills through music, which is what that's my bread and butter. So that's the biggest thrill for me, is just being able to really impart some valuable stuff into these kids' lives. So happy to be a part of it.
Really cool. Okay, so then what's on the horizon for Thaddeus Ford?
Man, so this year was a good year and a different year, 2023. At the beginning of the year, I was in New York City at the Lincoln Center. I was in a documentary in 2022 that got picked up for an independent film festival in New York. So went up there, first time being on the silver screen.
Cool.
And so that was a pretty big thing early this year. This summer, I composed music for a musical. A friend of mine actually wrote a musical. It's premiering in 2024. And so that was a major undertaking for me, especially that we're talking about 10 years ago, debut as a composer, and now I'm writing for musicals. So
that's cool.
That took the bulk of spring and summer. I just released an EP last October, wrote, recorded, mixed, mastered the whole thing on my own. It's everywhere on the internet. It's called I Can. Right now, man, I'm just happy to have some time off right now, with the engagement. We just built a house.
Built
the house, man. We're planning a wedding and building a house at the same time. And if I were just a little bit smarter, I probably would have separated those two. But, we were able to do both of them at the same time. Yeah. So house is done. We're actually moving tomorrow morning, and wedding is in March. So I think I'll be back to normal come May of next year.
Right.
So, yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, the thing about the marriage, though, like I experience is like once you know that you want to be with the person, like you're not putting that on hold. No. Like the house, you're not going to put on hold. So it just like life just happens and order it happens, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And you'll amaze yourself. You think, oh man, I won't be able to handle that. But, there's something dormant that rises up when you're in that position. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm experiencing right now.
Right. Is there like something in the career, like in the future, like this is a bucket list thing I want to do?
For me personally, this year I publicly made it clear that I am moving into a space of kind of how we were talking about the gumbo, how I describe my music. But, if you know me well and you follow my career, you realize that music is a big part of what I do, but I've got some other tricks up my sleeve and some other things that I want to deal with. So I'm actually writing a book right now.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And have no release date, but
Fiction,
I made
nonfiction?
No nonfiction.
Nonfiction. Okay.
And I've got a working title for it. It's called Tragedy to Triumph. And it's just kind of talking about the things we're talking about right now, how to deal with going through these things that we all have to go through at some point in time or another. But oftentimes we don't really glean what we could from those situations. It just becomes a scar. But I think that, if you go through something, that there's some valuable lessons. And, 2 divorces, a heart attack, that's a lot to kind of condense in a 10-year period. So I feel like I have something to offer. And honestly, I would have never done this if people hadn't been telling me probably for the last 5 to 10 years that, you need to write a book. Mm-hmm. Random people. And so I think that that's valuable. So I'm moving into the author space. I'm moving into the public speaking space, and just kind of homogenizing everything that I do into one creative platform. Mm. So, yeah, I'm excited.
That's cool. Yeah. That's very cool. I like it. Thank you, Thaddeus, for coming to my place and talking to us.
I had to lobby you, and I want to put that on.
It wasn't a hard lobby.
It was not a hard lobby. It was not. But like we were talking about before we started, I think this is a wonderful thing you're doing. And I think big things are going to happen for this thing and for you. And I'm happy that I'm here now, and we'll be able to look back and remember when we were in this living room. Because you'll be somewhere else doing this very thing with, I don't know, John Mayer or somebody. Right. But here we are right now, and I'm happy you said yes to me.
That's very kind.
Yep.
Thank you for saying all that.
Absolutely.
We will have links to all the stuff that you do.
Yeah.
And, keep an eye out for Thaddeus and all his stuff. And thanks for joining me.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed this chat with Thaddeus Ford. You can check out all his good stuff in the links in the show notes. Theme song, Unstoppable by Nola. Thank you for listening. Please like, subscribe, follow all the good stuff, and share it with your friends. We'll see you next time.